don't know how much carrying body our guest has done. We're closing out with the artist of the week as usual, and I'm very, very sure there's been a lot of carrying of body with our guests. Particularly, I think it was Thursday. He's going to tell us all about it. So let's celebrate a man often called the godfather of Nigerian comedy, and for good reason. From humble beginnings in Delta State to becoming a national icon, he has turned comedy into a respected profession, mentoring some of the biggest names in the industry and laying the foundation for a thriving comedy scene. More than a comedian, he is a businessman, a mentor, a philanthropist, and a cultural influencer. With countless accolades to his name, including ringing the Nigerian Stock Exchange bell and receiving the Paul Harris Fellowship, he's proven that laughter is truly serious business. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the one and only Alibaba to the show. Good morning, Alibaba.
Good morning. How are you?
I was so hoping, I had a surprise package for you here. I was so hoping you would be here, but unfortunately, you can't dance to any live band from where you are right now. So, again, let's begin by saying a good congratulations to you as you turn 60. How does that feel, really? 60-year-old man.
I actually feel 30. I feel like that I'm still just starting. I don't see any, because, you know, when you're in the creative space, your abilities are judged by your creativity. It is not judged by how long you've been in the game. And I go by the story of Carlos Santana, a man of Fatai Rolling Dollars, a man who had been, okay, in the case of Fatai Rolling Dollars, he was out of the scene for many years, came back and was winning awards. Carlos Santana was out of the scene for a while, came back and won 7 Grammys when he worked hard. So you see, for me, it is not about the age when you're in this industry. It's about the value propositions and the creativity that you churn out that determines whether you should be celebrated or not. So it's not the age, really. It is not the age. So I was just trying to say, I'm very happy to be as young as I am now and still adding value. There's still a lot to be done.
Okay.
And I'm sure I'll try and do as much as I can before my time runs out.
Okay. I would love very much, Ali, to make this what you would call a truly personality interview. Take us through the years, how it started for you, how comedy began, and, you know, for you, your forebears in the industry, and what you did differently and all of that. But let's start with the basics, where you came from.
Okay.
When did comedy become a thing that you thought was anything for you? Where did Alibaba come from? Okay,
so I came from my mother's womb, first of all. That aside, I did not realize how funny I was until I got into the university. So all through school, they knew that I had funny quips, I had witty stuff, because I started reading very early, and reading very early would open your mind to things that were either too high for people of your age group to contemplate or assimilate. And so from the age of 3, I started reading, and I could read as many things. So as far back at that time, I was reading West African Pilot. I was reading the KB Super, in spite of the fact that my dad would stop me. I was reading Drums. I was reading Sadness and Joy. I was reading... And my best part of the newspapers were the cartoons. And then I stumbled one day into, and this was, I think, about 6 or 7. I stumbled into the Nigerian Reader's Digest. So we used to have a Nigerian Reader's Digest back in the days. And I think it was published by the Daily Times. And so the Nigerian Reader's Digest gave me laughter, laughter as a medicine, and then all in a day's work, and all those things. Every time I read them and I laughed and I told somebody, oh, see what I just read now. And they were like, and then the funny quips, and then you then read the books of Mark Twain. You read the books of Shakespeare. You then begin to see the great power and punch that humor could help you achieve. And so I started developing those witty stuff all through my teenage years. But you see, none of it was activated for commercial reasons until when I got to the university. And when I got to the university, I was torn between becoming a lawyer or staying to become a comedian. My dad had said that I must change to law, that he wanted me to read law, and which was why I went to EPOMA. I would have taken every other, of course, I would have taken any other course. And so I changed and stayed with religious studies and philosophy. And most times, let me just say this, every time I say religious studies and philosophy, somebody thinks that I was going to become a pastor. No, religious studies and philosophy, we did Hebrew, we did Greek, we did Arabic, some Aramaic, and all of those studies, and we did philosophy of religion. So it was really an in-depth study, especially African religion. So all religions were studied in that. But the thing is, with that study, it opened my mind to a lot more things than just religion. We took elective courses in sociology, pol science, English, literature. And as I did that, this comedy thing started growing a bit more. Then thank God for SAP. Once SAP came and the school was closed down and we didn't have lectures when we were just staying in the hostel, I started watching, I sit in the buttery watching movies and I'm making side comments and I was just like a heckler in the buttery. And everybody will wait for me to come before a movie is played. And they wanted to hear my reactions. Gradually, when shows were done in school, there's a guy, there was Amerod Productions, there was Percy Okoje, and all of those people would want me to then come and transfer those funny quips that I used to do in the buttery on stage. Now, transferring it on stage was not a problem. But you see, in a university where your student affairs officer and registrar may be in the audience, you were playing with fire if you did anything or yapped any of them. But you see, on that very day, they had brought a striptease. Some lady from, and bear in mind that between 1987 and 1988, the 1986 and 1987, there was a new lease of life for Congo music in Nigeria. People embraced Congo music. And so they brought all their dancers as well. And so those dancers were all coming to, they were infiltrating. In fact, they even went into the churches. People were playing Makossa songs. Now, one of those striptease ladies came to our school in Epoma. And when she was, in fact, this hall was full. And when it was time for her to then undress totally, she ran off the stage because, some local people like us had not seen anybody like that in nude form. And so some of them ran on stage, and so the girl was afraid and ran off. And they said they needed somebody to come just pacify the people and get them to calm down so the show can continue. And somebody came to me, so Percy Okoje came and said, Ali, can you help us just pacify the audience and let them get back? And so that was how I started emceeing and cracking jokes. So to pacify the people, I had to start doing jokes, yabbing everyone. But you see, that day was a turning point. So I needed to say that was a turning point because as soon as I got on stage, I was home. I felt at home. I knew this was what I wanted to do. I started entertaining. Now, don't forget that I just got a ticket to attend the show. But from that day on, no show held in school without me. But then, as you mentioned I should talk about my forebearers, people who brought me into limelight. So I used to be called the resident John Chukwu in school until people then said, no, because I was doing stand-up. I wasn't just an MC. I was doing stand-up comedy. And stand-up comedy was quite different from slapstick or any of that. And the people who had done that a bit before me were Boma Oroko Sima, Jude Wewe, There was a guy called OAU in Auchi Poly at the time. There was John Chuku, of course, and all of these people did MC and stand-up in partial ways. But when I came on, I decided that I was not doing anything else. I want to do stand-up comedy. And so I started doing stand-up comedy. And from time to time, I'll get invited to Uniport, Unilag, LUT, ABU, Uniport, any of all those universities. And as I traveled from place to place, it grew on me that this thing was making a lot more money than what my dad was giving me. My dad was giving me 100 naira a month. And back then, 100 naira a month was a lot of money. And that 100 naira a month meant that your groceries, your cosmetics, your transportation, your feeding, everything came from that. And so I waited the whole month to get the 100 naira. But when I started doing these stand-up performances, I could get sometimes 200-300 naira per show. And of course, the indices pointed to the fact that this was even more lucrative than waiting for my dad to give me money. And as soon as that happened, I was convinced. But you see, the problem was my dad then said, you cannot become a lawyer if you are a comedian. And then EPOMA decided that they were going to change law degrees to 5 years. And this was the same time with Festus Keyamo, and I have to be wearing black and white every day. And you could not do all these performances. There are not many people who were into entertainment at the time who were law students that dropped and jettisoned their careers because the strict restriction of law students was that you can't be, how would they say it? Somebody who makes jest or cracking jokes or dancing on stage.
I'm just trying to imagine. My apologies, Ali. I'm just trying to imagine you as a lawyer.
I would have been like what's the Dele guy? I would have been like Dele. I would have been like Festus Keyamo. In fact, maybe.
Oh no, I think vicious. I don't know how the judges will be able to make you lose a case when they are laughing their heads off right there in the court. Tell me something,
okay, maybe if I were a lawyer, I would be more brutal and just like people see me and say, oh, you're a comedian. How do you negotiate? When it comes to dealing with money,
then they will know it is serious business. But let me ask you this: in the process, I mean, again, I want us to tell as much stories as we can. Which would you say, going hobnobbing from stage to stage, would be your most embarrassing moment to date?
Embarrassing?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So my most embarrassing moment would be the Abacha story. The Abacha story where Al Mustafa and I, we talk about this sometimes, especially when he was in Kirikiri. When he was in Kirikiri, I went to see him, myself, and then we went to see, I think then Bode George too was in look at how life is. Bode George was in same prison in Kirikiri, and Al Mustafa was there as well. So when we went there, and went to introduce me to Al Mustafa, and Al Mustafa said, this man that succeeded in running away. Because that would have been the last time, I'm sure, because I did a joke. I did a joke about Abacha at the time. And so there was this cultural troupe from Akwa Ibom that came to perform, and I was told to introduce them. After introducing them, I told them to come up on stage, and the musicians started playing, and I found out that Abacha was wearing dark glasses. And I was like, the Ray-Ban. I said, the band should stop. Excellency, you can't be wearing dark glasses when these guys are going to come perform. You created their state and they want to come and entertain you. You can't be wearing dark glasses. So he removed the glasses. But I think some of the boys were overreaching and felt like, oh, I must have yapped their organ. And so when they were, this was Abuja Sheraton, as they were going to the back of the hall, I went to sit with Abacha. So that was like the closest I've been to being castrated or something. But it was so every now and then Mustafa and I will talk, we just laugh about it. So that would be what I can count to, but embarrassing, no.
Okay.
That would make me look back and say, oh, I wish that didn't happen. Or not.
Awesome. Now, you have mentioned a number of names in your career. One of them that's been quite prominent, and you've celebrated him a few times, is Richard Mofe-Damijo. And a good number of people around you also celebrate him when you do celebrate him, even at the January 1st concert from time to time. There is a way you came to Lagos. Tell us the story, how you moved to Lagos, what role he played, and who else played that role along the line.
Okay, so there's a Chris Hanem, the musician, had come to Ekpoma to perform. Michael Cree had come to Ekpoma to perform. Oris Wilike had come to Ekpoma to perform. Charlie Boy had come to Ekpoma to perform. But at this time, all of them were coming. There was a guy that was a constant amongst all of them, and his name was Eddie Lawani. Eddie Lawani was the administrative secretary at the time of Piman. And so he used to travel with some of them. And since his hometown is around that area, he came with them. And so he witnessed me at one of those performances. And he told me, oh, that he knows John Chukwu, he knows a lot of people, but that the kind of comedy I was doing was quite different. And he thinks that I should come to Lagos and push my skills. I said, okay, as soon as I finish. So I came to Lagos. Eddie introduced me to a lot of people. Then I remembered that Richard Mofe-Damijo was one of our big bosses from Warri, and he was in Lagos. He had a magazine called Mr. Magazine at the time. And so I said, okay, let me go and see him. And he was an actor too. And so I went to National Theatre, found out where I could see him and reach him. And so National Theatre was a place where it was a hub for all creative talents at the time. So from National Theatre, I got to know where to find him. So I went to find him. When I then saw him, when I waited, like, I still remember what he was wearing. He was wearing this waistcoat over navy blue pants and a sky blue shirt. The waistcoat is like the Scottish thing that looks like shortbread. That kind of waistcoat. And that was what he was wearing. And he drove in his lemon green Mercedes-Benz 200. And so when he came in, I was waiting for him already. So I came out, I greeted him, he greeted other people, and then I said, Miguel. He turned and looked at me and said, Vrendo, and then walked inside. So when he had finished everything, he called me, I went in, he was eating beans and plantain, which is his favorite food. And so I joined him. We finished talking, they said, hey, so why are you here? So I told him, I said, I'm a comedian, and I funny die. So he said, you funny die? I said, oh yeah, now you do here now, show me now. By the time I'd done like 2-3 jokes, he said I should stop. And that he would start introducing me to a lot of people. So from then on, he would take me in his hand. And when he's emceeing events, he would say, just do 5 minutes. And from then on, I grew. So it's hard to write the story of my success without mentioning Eddie Lawani. Some other people that you also think about is Patrick Doyle, who gave me the first live. You know, I was doing a lot of recorded programs in NTA, but Patrick Doyle was the first person that got a live show on TV. Okay, for instance, I was doing Charlie Boy show, and that was recorded as well. And we'll do skits. So what people do now, the skits that they do now, we used to do them on Charlie Boy show. The candid camera thing that they do now, we used to do them on Charlie Boy show. So, but Patrick Doyle's show gave me the opportunity to perform live on network. And so people will phone in, and when they call in, I'll twist jokes around it. Patrick will allow me to twist jokes around them. I remember one time when Babangida had cancelled June 12th election. And unfortunately for us, the Friday that followed was Friday Night Live. and the military, you know, the military sentries were always at NTA. And so Patrick Doyle started the live show. Bet you, all calls that came in were yabbing Babangida. They were useless man. How can he cancel the election? What kind of this? And so we started monitoring and screening shots. So a particular guy calls from Egbeda area with all kinds of insultive words and whatever. So we cut him off. And when the person called again, they asked, well, oh, that he wants to talk about the beautiful studio that we have and praise us. As soon as he was put online, he said, yes, it's me that called that last time. And then went again. Just at that point, we took a musical break. The musical break we took was Baby Wala Colombo. So they were playing the Baby Wala Colombo video. And then these military men came and said that they want to see Patrick Doyle. So they took Patrick Doyle out, and I was there. They said I should continue with the show. And so we came back, and then Patrick now came back. I said, what? Patrick said that they said no more live calls, that if we must continue the show, no more live calls. So we continued the show. But you see, what that gave me was that I could be spontaneous to anything that anybody said. And that was a difference. Then you had Bisi Olatilo. Bisi Olatilo allowed me on radio. I'd never been on radio before. So Bisi Olatilo allowed me on radio with Radio Nigeria 3, where you had a pidgin service. And after that, Mani Onumonu, Sonny Rabo, all of those radio people allowed me to get on stage, on the mic with them. And those things just grew me. Then for the National Theatre, everyone that was there helped to... Because since I read religious studies and philosophy, I had to learn on the run. I had to pick up all the skills, stage movement and everything from the start, memorizing scripts, breathing, learning your script, internalizing it, character development, everything. I had to learn all of that at Abegi, thanks to Tuji Shotimiri, thanks to Abba to Dulate, all those people helped to groom me, and then the Chalk Mike. You see, all these people that I'm mentioning, they went to school to learn some of all these things, but I did not. So there was need for me to learn from their tutelage. And from me, it made me deep. In fact, like in NTA, I learned how to build sets with Oga Johnson. Johnson was the set designer in NTA.
I think you owe all of them, Ali. You owe all of them royalties, and which they are going to.
Oh yes. Because so for me, it wasn't about what they were doing. It is why. So my learning curve was, why were they doing what they did? Why do you drop your voice when you want to deliver a very punchy line? Why do you turn around when somebody says something and your lines have not come yet? Why do you do all the blockings that you...
Okay.
So I learned all of that from just watching people. I was on a... Lai Arasomi put me on a show called The Honorables, and we played with the Taiwa Jailai set and some great actors. And from then they'll tell me, oh, the way you act on stage is not the same way you act on TV.
Yep.
You don't project too much, just say the words like you say them normally. And all of that learning curve, I internalized it and became better for it. And it makes me remember somebody like Amaka Igwe, who said that, come to me with everything you know so I can teach you everything I know and you can be better than me. So I go to people...
Yes.
I go to people, learn from them, and become better. I used to be a cartoonist at Fame. Mayo Akipelu, Femi Akitude Johnson, and Kunle allowed me to, when Sonia had left, I did some cartoons with them at the time at Fame. I wrote as a columnist.
Yeah, my apologies, Ali.
I wrote as a columnist at the Sunday Times.
Okay.
Yes, you were saying?
Don't worry, you write your book. But there's this Pastor Alpha Cross, he has this one. Just a message, and of course you can also send yours to wish Alibaba a happy birthday. Alibaba is indeed a trailblazer, mature, soundly and intelligently humorous, full of wits and intellectually balanced. It's no longer at ease with comedians of today who have become pedestrian and petty. The audience will laugh, but no didactic impact. Tell us, Ali, in the light of this mail, some people, you are now called the king of comedy. Yeah, well, someone calls you, actually, ChatGPT calls you the godfather of comedy. So what Mention some names, that you can say, as you went under the tutelage of some people, others who came under you and said, look, we want to do what you're doing. You have believed, and you have also said you decided to do something different. You decided to do stand-up comedy. Tell us the story into it and the people that have come with you in that light, and how they came the way you came to RMD, to Eddie Lawani and the rest of them.
Okay, so you see, when I started doing stand-up comedy, the appreciation and acceptance of comedy was non-existent. And when I say non-existent, it was that nobody wanted to pay you to be a solo stand-up comedian. There was the Ojoladipo Theatre, there was Papilu, there was Benga Deboye, and all of these people were doing. So Benga Deboye was doing stand-up, mostly the Yoruba content stand-up. He was doing skits as well, a lot more skits before skit making became a thing now. And Jaguar, all of these people were doing those stuff. You see, there's a difference between stand-up comedy and comedy. Stand-up is holding the microphone and facing your realities on stage. So when I started doing stand-up, the challenge was that people did not think it was worth paying a lot of money for, especially since you are an individual. You are a solo performer. And so they didn't think of how much they should pay. But you see, thanks to people like Steve Omogiafo, who was the chairman of STB McCann, the advertising agency, who spoiled me rotten. I say that because when I was in school, I was charging 100 naira, 200 naira, 300 naira for events, but I gradually graduated to about 700. When I came to Lagos, I would charge 700. So when Steve Omogiafo of STB McCann called, sent somebody to come see me, Kunle, that they should come talk to me about being a comedian. I think it was 7 Up High Life. There was a promo at the time. I then said I wanted 700. And they thought, I said I wanted 7. They thought I meant 7,000. And so the guy was saying, no, he was going to pay 5. I said, no, that what I would charge is 7 last. So the guy went and said he will bring the money for me. So he went and brought 7,000 and gave to me. And my uncle then that I was squatting with, don't forget that this was the time of 419, 419 everywhere. My uncle, this is between 1988 and 89, 419 everywhere. My uncle said, how will somebody give you 7,000 and assign the payment voucher to come and crack jokes? This is how you get arrested. And so Philip Efogwa, that's my uncle then. And so so I told him, I said, no, that this comedy that so I told him how much I was charging. Even he said that his salary was not up to that. and you are charging it for once. So I went to do the show. When I did the show, in fact, when I got there, I nearly packed chairs and helped them arrange the place because the money was too much. So I was overwhelmed by how much I was paid. But from the time that I found out that I was undercharging myself, I then knew that the value of this thing was high. The appreciation was high. But you see, you had to market yourself to the people who will value it. So I decided that I was not going to market it to the Mecunius anymore. So I started pushing towards the well-to-do. So which was why I then had my adverts and billboards where Civic Center is now, opposite the governor's house by Marina, and then one by Foreshore Towers by Osborne. Now, I started advertising and promoting myself and marketing myself so the people who could afford me and appreciated what I was doing. It wasn't about being funny. Like I say, if you do not package whatever you are doing, every talent you have, if you don't package it as a service, nobody will pay for it. They will just treat it as a hobby. Until you convert what you're doing to a service, people will treat it as a hobby. And so, as soon as I started making sure that the people who valued it were the people that I marketed myself to, I started getting real value. And the real value then rose to the point where I then got the deal with Satsim Brow, that I became the brand ambassador / comedian, and we toured across 36 states with ID Enyang, who was the brand manager. And Satsim Brow paid me my first check of 1.6 million in 1996. Now, in that 1995-96, in that 1995-96, when I showed somebody, the check was from a Lions Bank then. When I showed somebody the check, because I did a photocopy, I paid it in. It took 7 days for the check to clear. When I paid the check in, I did the photocopy, and I carried the photocopy in my books. I will use the as a bookmark, you know, just to look at it and say, so somebody paid me 1.6 million. So I then started encouraging every other person. So I started talking to many of them. So my first convert was Mohammed Danjuma of blessed memory. So Mohammed Danjuma and a few others joined. Then TA. So TA, I convinced TA, because TA, I went to school and he saw me, I saw him, we clicked. And so TA started living with me from then on. We were making so much money, and people did not know we were making that much. I started grooming a lot of them to tell them, this is how I did this, this is how I did that. When the pager came, you know, the pager services, where you could get a pager, and disk engineering, I got pagers for all my colleagues at the time. There was a time a voicemail service also came. They were on Norman Williams. I also got voice services.
Who are these colleagues of yours at the time, Ali?
Okay, so there's a guy called now, there's a guy who has totally shifted now to movies. His name is, who owns Teens Television, Charles Novia.
Okay.
There was, yes, there was TA, AY, and all those other people came later. There was another guy called Begbegbe. There was, so there were many. And so now, all of these guys, then the Agoma Agwaritoma was also part of that clique. And all of them that came to me at the time, I just opened up this and let them know that from reading books, getting your ideas and developing them was very important, because you needed it to create and weave stories around situations. And it then made you ready for spontaneity. So anytime any situation comes to you, you could make a joke out of it. And so in putting all of those, there was another guy, Senti Jack. I just remember Senti Jack now. Senti Jack, I think he's still doing music now. Senti Jack was also one of them. But the thing was, as people saw what we were doing, so they were learning from afar. When they have a chance to meet you, they come and meet you and ask, how do you do this?
Okay.
But I noticed that the biggest problem a lot of them had was accommodation. And since accommodation was the biggest issue, there was no time that I stayed in any house rented that was less than 5-bedroom flats.
Okay, Ali, I have a couple of messages, well, 3 messages actually, but one of them is from Olusegun Dada, who says Alibaba is simply great, more grace to the elbows. There is this one that Victor Owo says he met you first time at Fela's Shrine, Purple Street, back in the day, and you will tell us this. He said there was a small tap exchange between him and Fela.
Okay,
and he said
threw me out.
He wishes you. Tell us about it. What happened?
Okay, so my birthday, the Mabiaku, had invited me to the shrine. So I went to the shrine because it was Yabis night. So I went there, and they would say, stay here, stay here, stay here, stay here. So I stayed there. And so Baba was talking and I was laughing. So I was cracking the people around me up. And Baba was telling that, so Fela was telling people to shut up, that he's talking. So, and I was still telling the people some jokes and they were laughing. So Baba knew that what I was saying was distracting. So he now said, like, where did this stranger come from? So he now said, I should come. Do you want to talk? Do you want to yab? Do you want me to yab you? So I now said, he should give me 5 yabis and I'll give him 1. The imbalance of that yabis, that he will yab me 5 times and I'll yab him only once, was really strange to him. So there's an Oviewiski's son, who I think he was a drummer then, Oviewiski's son, who now said, yabam bako, yabam, if he yab you, yabam. He was sitting on the drums, so he said, yabam. So Baba did like 2, you know, he had his followers.
Yes.
There was a cult following. So he did the first joke, the first yabis, did the second yabis, did the third one. So when he finished the 5th one, and I said, okay, I have just one beast for him. And I said, that was he born on a public holiday? Because it's only people who were born on public holidays that the back of their head was not properly molded, so they have ogo, and so the head is like ogo. Baba said they should throw me. That they should throw me. But the boys that were hailing me too. But as they were hailing me, they were throwing me out. They were like, oh, wale, and threw me out. They said, don't come here again, no, the beach that you say so.
Okay.
You know? But that was how that, and I didn't know that a lot of people, I was embarrassed that they threw me out of night shift. Only to find out that I think it was Lagos weekend. This thing, some Amadi guy, Ogbona Amadi. I think it's past now.
Ali, my time is out.
I was thrown.
Ali, my time is. Well, this one
I was thrown out of night shift.
Well, Victor Owo is wishing you a happy 60th. We also have this one from Adamu Ayuba, who says, Alibaba, happy 60th. I remember you and Sammy Needle coming to Sheraton Barbecue Saturdays.
Yes.
Agatha Chukweke Bafnaju was then our director of sales, says happy birthday to you and many happy returns. And this one is from High Chief Andrew Omeime Izire, right there in Abuja. It says Alibaba has become a phenomenon in the comedy industry. He's a great guy. Watching him this morning on Sunrise Daily, my 12-year-old son said, Alibaba doesn't look 60. He said he looks 40. What is Alibaba's secret of looking younger than his age?
I accept that 40. I accept that 40.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time this morning, Ali. And again, on behalf of everyone here at Channels Television, we wish you a happy birthday and many, many happy returns. My producer says, let's celebrate him. He's one of us. You're one of us, and we are proud of what you have become. Thank you so much. I'm sure that this is going to continue in December when we hold our DSS.
Yes, our ritual.
Our ritual. Yes, all right. Thank you so much, Ali, and have a wonderful celebration.
Thank you very much.